Get up and get out. Get out. Get out. I have a question for you. Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Endless Thug, aka White Boy Deep Voice, another racially ambiguous graper. And join with me is the co-founder with New American Vision. I wonder if you guys can hear him, actually. I'm not sure if he's coming through or not. But no need to do any introductions. You guys know who we are. We are going to go ahead and bring in Zeb right now. You know what's happening.
What's up, boys? What's up, boys? Racially ambiguous. Racially ambiguous.
That's the first time you heard that?
Nailed it. Yeah. From you.
That's hilarious. No, I added it in my tagline because I think it was either the MAGA Hulk or Lucky Teeter, one of these bigger MAGA accounts, came at me and said that, and I've kind of roped it into all the introductions here, so it sticks. But I guess we're here.
I like it.
Because we're going to talk a little bit about where our kind of disagreements are in terms of how the right-wing, Republicans, conservatives, dissident right, whatever tag term you want to put in there, how we should be approaching 2020 or 2028 and 2026 first and foremost. And I think the reason we had this disagreement, I think, was because I had seen your reaction to Nick's complete kind of admittance of destroy MAGA, burn it to the ground, burn the GOP, I'm not voting. So I just want to turn it to you because I want to give you a chance to just kind of give your full-throated, like, what is your disagreement and what do you think we should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, my disagreement is essentially all of it. My disagreement is the idea is not based in reality. If I had to boil it down to essentially, the foundational disagreement, is that it does not align with anything that we see in history. It does not align with reality. It does not align with life experience that I've had along the way, right? Accelerationism from this perspective is to say that we need to apply group punishment. We need to demoralize people. So then they say, oh, maybe we should change things. And that's just not how things work, right? If we, I can look back at the Marine Corps, I can look back at football practice, back in high school, college, all of these things throughout life, even into the workforce. It's like no group punishment has ever actually worked. No, there's never been any turnaround on that. It's all a demoralization effort, which he admits to. And then there is no raising of the morale. There is no, and just like accelerationism, I say it's a terminal losing, and it is. It's a position of terminal losing with the hope. Like the foundation is, trust the plan, right? This is horseshoe theory. I hope that if it gets bad enough people will come to their senses, and then we'll reclaim America, or we'll reclaim the GOP. And the basis of at least Nick's specific positioning on accelerationism is that we're just gonna black pill so hard. We're gonna make people black pill so hard that voting is gonna matter again, right? That's kind of another issue that we have to get over, is that not only the black pilling across the board, then we have to raise morale so people get involved again. Then we have to get rid. We got to get over the hurdle of everybody's a retard. Right. Not retarded. They're a retard. Once we get over that hurdle, then we have to realize, okay, now what is the win condition? And the win condition is not voting. It'll never be voting. There's no hope at the end of the tunnel. There's no light at the end of the tunnel where if I vote for that light, I'll get there. There's no Hilarion figure that can get us to that point. And my position is that exactly that. We don't have a win condition. We're not going to have a win condition in 28. We're not going to have a win condition in 32. You know, I said last year that I got like 15 years. If I got to figure something out in 15 years, whatever that is. But what we do have to do is build up a win condition. And I think that comes with numbers. That being said, the only way to acquire numbers to this extent, specifically IRL numbers, not online numbers, these are two completely different things. The translation across the board from internet numbers to IRL numbers is drastically different, and we can dive into that later too. But my point is that we need to essentially buy time. This accelerationism is not going to get us to where we want to go faster. It's still going to take basically the same amount of time. It's just going to be worse as we get there. Right. So it's like, I think specifically in the clip, and we can probably watch it if we need to, but he said something that it'd have been better if we were under Kamala. Well, I mean, just if we take, you know, we could take different aspects to it. You know, all this argument that Donald Trump is not doing mass deportations, I agree with. But what has happened is there's been a very, very much of a slowdown with people coming across the border. And so if we're relatively securing the border, and I can grant you all of them fudging the numbers all they want to, right, or the self-deportations they won't lie about, I can grant you all that, but then come back and say, well, we would have 8 to 10 million come in the first year under Kamala. Okay, grant me 5 at least. Okay, now we have 5 million with another 15 million at minimum coming in the next 3 years. How do we undo that? That's not an undoable thing. There is no deportation that will facilitate the undoing of 15, 20 under Biden. We're looking at 35 in the last 8 years if we're sitting on 2028. There's no deportation effort that will ever fix that, like ever. And so I would argue that deportation is even off the table right now. And so the follow on from that is, well, what do you do about it? And that is a conversation that can be had, not on YouTube though.
So
thank you, sir.
So I think you actually said this. I think you actually said this best. I think that when we were talking about this on the phone, and like the premise to all of this is what you're laying out though, is because you don't think there is a political solution, right? Like you don't think that the win, like you said, no win condition, no political solution. And I guess in that sense, you're saying that
I wouldn't say no political solution.
Okay.
I think we do have a possibility for a political solution. That possibility being like in the tenths of a percentage. And if we're going to do that, it would look like you did the thumbnail with the Confederate and the Yankee on the thumbnail, but you know, not tongue in cheek here. I think there is a place for a quasi secession from states, right? We see, yeah. I mean, you even see it up in north in Idaho, where they're trying to create Greater Idaho, where they essentially, it's almost a balkanization effort, but they're trying to capture counties in Oregon and Washington to create Greater Idaho, right? Those counties want to leave because Portland and Seattle are garbage. And and the same thing can happen with some of the other states. And I alluded to this a while back, and a lot of people like to go to World War II and Hitler, and he revitalized Germany, and we need a Hitler. But you know, I mentioned this the other day on Twitter. It's like, yeah, Hitler was great, and he was dealing with the Jews, but what we have to deal with first is, I would argue, worse than the Jews, but the Jews facilitated. And so we're fighting a war on multiple fronts. To now that's like, okay, where is the political solution? The only political solution is to essentially separate ourselves, secession, to an extent.
Yes. And
don't come get me.
That part would be where I can see some of that, and I would, right, the flag there. And it's more than just Idaho, right? You have this happening in Virginia right now, between counties, between West Virginia and Virginia. I believe it's happening in Oregon as well, too, like West Jefferson Project. And that would be how it would have to happen, right? Like it would have to happen with secession, like people escaping with power. And I think that's been my biggest disagreement with something like Arval, which is if I see enough people like Arval doing that in the future, well, what's to stop South Africa happening again? Because what to me, Arval's essentially leaving without any levers of power. That is like a complete kind of walk away from the system. Now, he makes the argument that he can survive in the current system, but I think that's the key word, current. I think as it continually gets worse, it's like you're not going to be able to live out there. They will come and find you. They will come and sue you. And I think he kind of did it tongue in cheek to Nick, where he was like, you know, they're going to come and murder us.
He's being sued right now.
Yeah, for the freedom of association. And this is something that I think we should see actually play out, which is take this to the Supreme Court. See if you do have the freedom to associate in this country. I guess.
No.
My disagreement comes with the element of like the pro. And here's the thing, and maybe people are misreading into this. Like, you don't think that voting for MAGA or defending Trump is like what we need to be doing right now either, right? This isn't like a defense of the administration or like vote for Republicans like the John Doyle crowd. Because I guess well, go ahead.
I guess I kind of am. Let me grab a second ago we were talking about Arval. Let me grab that real quick and then I'll dive into the voting issue. I'm fine with Arval and Ozarkia and those guys that are doing whatever they have going on over there. I'm fine with that. That's it's and Andrew Eisker and CJ doing that over in Kentucky or wherever they're at. Yep. That's a throw shit at the wall, see if it sticks kind of concept. And I'm fine with that. I'm not going to counter signal that. Right. Will they get away with it? Maybe for a little while, but eventually they're going to come for you. Eventually, Ruby Ridge is inevitable, right? And there is no escaping. There's no depth into the woods that you can escape from. I mean, we have literal Jewish space lasers that they're outright admitting to. So I mean, if you don't paint your house blue, I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But no, I'm not going to counter signal that, but it's only going to last so long. You can't operate inside of the system and expect to not operate inside of the system. It's just dumb on its face.
Exactly.
But I'm perfectly fine with somebody who wants to do that. But that's kind of a broader question of like tactics,
right,
across the board, where we kind of are making the argument, pro or against accelerationism. I'm fine with tactics like that as long as they aren't mutually destructive to my position, right? Isn't that what it is? As long as it's not like mutually destructive, right? If I'm trying to prolong something and then your tactic is accelerate, it's like these things cannot exist together. Yeah. And so to the question that you asked about voting, I guess inevitably, to an extent, yes, I would prefer if we were to essentially commandeer the DNC. That would be my position. If I had the audience, if I had the personnel, the funding, I think the DNC can be commandeered to an extent. I'm not saying outright. I'm saying to an extent. What I would do, and this is kind of long game play here, is run a relative nationalist under a D in red states, in red counties, in red districts, in red regions, so that they can facilitate an option outside of what has been given. Just like here, we've had I don't live in the seat anymore, but we have a state seat that's been blue for how long has he been there? 20 years almost. Yeah. And so if we ran someone red, now he's a Republican, but he runs as a D. He's like a blue dog Democrat from the 80s. But if we ran a Republican, he lost by 400 votes, and he wasn't a very good candidate to run. And I think that could have switched the seat. So if we can essentially take that concept and apply it across the board in seats that aren't going to be filled by we can call them rhinos, call them neocons, call them people that, Mitch McConnell's that have been in the seat for some long period of time, and run somebody that is an actual option under a Democrat ticket, I think that's a possibility. But all that being said, that's a little bit down the road. I don't have the funding. I don't have the backing. I don't have the voice. All that being said is we have to get to that point.
Well, let me ask you
this. And accelerating to not voting, to abstaining from voting, is kind of contrary to the position that I'm holding. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not saying vote for an abortionist, but what I am saying is that if you're offered a Donald Trump that's at least rhetorically advocating for repealing Roe v. Wade versus Hillary Clinton, I think the best that she came up with, safe, legal, and rare, I think we're fine with voting for Trump even into a 24 election. So to answer your question, I would prefer a better Republican candidate.
Right.
But given that that's probably not going to happen on a national ticket, on a presidential ticket specifically, then we don't really have much of an option. I mean, what are you looking at? Kamala versus JD Vance in 2024? 28. It's like,
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants that. Well, I guess. Well, let me pull this back some because I am an accelerationist, and you had said something that kind of caught my attention. You want to prolong things, but I guess what operates in that, right? Because you then said infiltrating with the DNC, which I'm somebody who I don't even think. I think the culture right now is still not strong enough to be able to infiltrating even the RNC right now. So I guess what would be like that timeline?
well, no, I don't think the RNC is infiltratable.
You don't. You think it would be easier?
I think the
infiltrate
RNC
DNC?
is. I think the RNC is Democrats. That's my
Okay.
position. And the Democrats have gone so far left that they have essentially abandoned the middle to a point where there is an opening for people that wish to apply themselves in a nationalist sense in a location that doesn't have a strong Republican candidate and doesn't really run Democrats to fill the seat, right? It's like I think Nick has mentioned running the third party. Elon has tried this. The Libertarians have done this. Green Party has done this for a long time. Europe has multiple parties, but it is still a two-party system. But the problem in the United States is not that we have two parties. It's that those two parties have been around and been funded and existed and built infrastructure, whether that's emails, phone numbers, addresses, essentially a surveillance system within themselves that to compete with that would take another 50 to 100 years and $1 trillion on top of it. And so that third party is not even, it's like, that's not even a possibility. That's not even a thought. And so the only other option is we either commandeer the Republican Party, which is not going to happen because they're essentially centrist with libertarian leanings that are prior Democrats, like 50% of them in the administration right now are prior Democrats.
Yeah.
Including Trump himself. JD Vance's not one of those, but he was anti-Trump. He was a never Trumper and praised Obama early on. So what we're looking at is a Democrat administration running the Republican Party and the GOP right now, and the Democrat Party is largely progressive and brown. And so if you give someone, if this positioning of nationalist rising is a viable position, then there's no reason that we can't run someone that is relatively nationalist in a Democrat primary and win against Republicans. And so if we do that enough times and enough seats, and there are enough seats out there for this to happen, then we can actually have seats. We can maybe win a vote on a chair seat in the DNC, right? And so again, this is like a 12-year plan, like minimum. But the point is, we have to buy time and accelerating to, we're at, I don't know what, 100 million illegals, accelerating to 300 million illegals because we're in an economic zone now is just not. There's no winning. There's no winning on that end. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I guess here would be my contention, because I think a lot of this happens like in a vacuum, right? With like no names, no context. So let me throw out Thomas Massey.
Yep.
Do you right now? I know obviously things are super fluid, like things can change in a moment, but right now it does feel like there would be strong momentum for someone like a Thomas Massey to run a ticket. Now the question would be, would he try to do it as an independent or would he do it as a Republican? I think if he does it, here's what he could do: he could win as a Republican, win the primary, then step out. You could do something to these effects. Obviously, there's a lot more technical to it, but to me, I guess I'd have to look at the DNC a bit more, but I do think there is some truth to what you're saying, which is the RNC is like basically built to gatekeep. It is built to find out people. They have so many people, staffers, aides, ready to screen grab, screenshot. They'll wipe you out. But I guess in that sense, though, I find it a much harder sell, though, to get nationalist candidates. Like if we were talking black nationalists and we can get like somebody off of the Jake Shields podcast, I can't remember what his name is. Maybe that would be something that would be seemingly feasible. But the reason why I guess I view the acceleration element a lot stronger now is because we do have this major umbrella item that is uniting both the left and the right. Well, now two items. You have Israel and its more broader understanding, both the left and the right want to decouple from Israel in a broad sense. But now you also have the Epstein files. Now this is kind of two elements both together that is uniting both the left and the right. And people are agreeing and liking tweets and reposting stuff on the timeline that don't even realize they're reposting a communist.
Yeah.
But it's because what they're saying about Epstein that they're liking. And so I think, you have this kind of changing environment. To me, I do think that if now would be, if there was any time, it would be after the release of the Epstein files that you could take advantage of uniting somebody either on a third-party platform or getting a real strong spoiler candidate. All in all, though, I think the attempt is to break down and win over what the GOP is. But I guess you find that to be off the table.
Right. So, I would package the Jeffrey Epstein and Israel stuff into one camp. Largely they're the same topic. And I agree with you. There's a lot of incoherence coming out from a vast majority of people, namely the hockey shooter the other day that's a tranny but is a groyper at the same time. It's like that's an incoherent ideology. And I was talking to a guy yesterday, and we were kind of going over, that dynamic, a lot of people coming out that just have incoherent ideologies. And, we talk about people that are NPCs. We talk about people that are retards. That is the thing. They are lower level consciousness to where they have no process of consequence of action. And so they come up with these incoherent ideologies. I mean, that is what transgenderism is. That is what, LGBTQ, leftist, you name it, is. It is all incoherent. And so, when we're dealing with those people and the common thread is Israel, you have to kind of weigh your options here and say, am I willing to grant? We can take a myriad of on a list. Let's just take what Trump ran on, right? Mass deportations, immigration. Like, are we willing to compromise immigration for the sake of Israel voting in leftists? And I don't think the answer is yes. Are we willing to compromise election integrity to grant, to go after Epstein in Israel? And I think the answer is yes. That's not to say that obviously Trump isn't doing anything on that front by itself anyway. But then he comes out yesterday and he says 2020 was stolen. And then we have stacked on top of that everything that we know about the auto pen being faked. It's like, that's the thing that can't be undone, though. Right? We're not going to undo pardons. Where are they undoing the pardons? It's not happening. Where's undoing the 4 years? Where's undoing the 20 million illegals that have come in since under Biden? And it's kind of the question of, are we willing to sacrifice 5 or 6 Biden cycles? Because the accelerationism is still going to take time in itself, right, for Israel, which we agree is probably the core issue. Jews, I'll be specific.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I guess when I look at that, though, like in the element, right, of like, if we would have had Kamala, like, there's these different arguments that come out of it. But I think the point with mass deportations is the one that's really sticky, which is, at this point, I guess, what does it matter? Right? Because by definition, we have provided mass amnesty to billions of illegals. And I think we can both sit here and say, we're not going to get anything close to the mass deportations we were promised by the end of this term. So then, with the expectation that the left is going to come in with swinging with a hammer and win, that adds essentially 4 more years now to these illegals having, now they'll be at 7, 8, 9 years of kind of like some unchanging status. And now it's at 40, 50, 60 million illegals. To me, it's like, now it's building the problem. And you said deportations are off the table. But I think that it keeps, the longer we do this, I think it incurs, you would need an even more Hitler-esque figure. You would need someone who would be even more ruthless to fix these problems. Because let's be honest, if we're talking about anything beyond 10 million deportations, I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath in this nation. And if we're being serious about it,
I would say we say Hitler. I mean, at the end of the day, Hitler is essentially going to be a moderate if there's anyone that's going to come along and save America.
Right. That's my point. Which is like, it's going to require an even greater kind of figure, an even more kind of Alexander the Great. It's going to require somebody, but I feel like at the same time, the culture is continually escaping us too. So with culture being this very kind of fleeting thing, to me, I find it easier to sink the teeth in on the losses of what this is, breaking the cycle from what it is. Because to me, I do view that argument in the reverse, where I do think, like, if Kamala was president right now, the pressures to go to war with Iran, how would that play out? And I think that would be a huge blow to the Democrats. What would that do, though, on the other side? I think is ultimately unfortunate, because I think you would still end up with a Trump potentially running in like a 2028 if he was that old, if he was going to, be willing to. I guess for me, I find the only reasonable solution to be something, because I guess my point would be, I think this country's got a limited period no matter what. Not to say like it's going to blow up and it's going to be apocalyptic. But I do find that it's if there is going to be an end to this country, it'll ultimately be a reworking. Well, it'll be a secession. It'll be some kind of like breakdown that'll change, I think, a lot of the kind of like just general infrastructure of what the nation is.
It sounds like maybe not you specifically, but just the accelerationist camp in general is hoping and praying on the idea that maybe elections will be real one day.
Well, this is the
I mean,
thing.
is that it, or are you just trying to accelerate to a point of balkanization? Because I think these are two different arguments.
Well, repeat what you mean.
Well, I mean, the accelerationists are arguing that there'll be so many trannies out in the streets and they'll be changing in all the bathrooms, or we'll have, instead of 100 million illegals, we'll have 300 million illegals. And then all the people that watch sports ball they'll be like, oh, this is really bad. Actually now, even though they already say that, and NFL's extremely gay, has been since 2016. I mean, it's been 10 years, man. It's been 10 years since the NFL has been running rainbow flags and everybody was in an uproar, and nothing has changed. So my problem is that the accelerationist is on this hope and praying of the masses waking up, which is just not going to happen. It's never happened. It's never going to happen. The vast majority of people are retarded, and when it's continually filled with more and more people, I mean, we'll have more people coming in that are illegals than people that are waking up at that rate. And so that's kind of my contention, is that the accelerationist position is a defeatist. I mean, it's let's lose. Where's the win? There is none. Oh shit, now we're in war, and instead of 100 million, now we got 300 million to fight against.
Well, here'd be what my response back to that. I think if you're looking at what the arguments being thrown out by Nick even himself says he's not an accelerationist. He does believe in voting. He does believe in the incrementalism. He's using accelerationism in this kind of 4-year period as a tool, essentially, to garner up what he believes to be what you had just kind of downplayed, being this idea that would wake people up or invigorate the right wing, the Republicans, to act different, be better, be more Christian, be more pro-white, be more all of the things we want them to be. I guess with the point that you had said, I don't really know if we need to wake everybody up, right? Like, not all the normies are watching NFL.
Sure.
But I'll
grant you 10%. 8%.
But if it's the 8% that's actually at the RNC, the 8% that's actually working at the GOP, like if you alter the actual essence of what the GOP is, I think that's like the goal. Not like a mass awakening of like everyone wakes up and they're like, wow, it was the Jews. It's like, no, it's at least those who are close to the Republican circle, the RNC circuit, the GOP, the podcasting circuit. If all of those people, could you imagine if every person sounded like Tucker Carlson? We would be moving down the line. Not to say I agree with Tucker Carlson, but it would be moving.
I just don't know though. I mean, didn't Trump and JD Vance during the campaign sound like Tucker Carlson? I mean, doesn't Nick boast about we have people on the inside? It's like, at what point do you stop hiding your power level? And the answer is never. Because by the time you unhide your power level and you actually do something about it, then you're blocked by the people that actually have the power.
Well, I mean,
you're just sitting in seats at an extent at some point, and so the bureaucracy is going to ever exist. When I say bureaucracy, I'm talking about the coming oligarchy, right? We are in a growing fascist society, a growing fascist government that is working with the private sector, right? Peter Thiel, Palantir, across the board, even with Israel. I mean, the Board of Peace by itself is a globalist idea, an American empire that is globalism by another name. And
right,
it's like,
well, let me go back to this though, because my thing is I like, and this is my argument back to what you're saying. Nothing has accelerated the left winning the next 4 years more than the actions of the current administration. Like, it's the actions, it's the failures of the promises of the Trump administration right now, which is causing many people to have like that dissonance, right? They're like, F
Agreed.
this, I'm not voting again, like I'm done. So I would argue, and because you would make the argument too, I think, that Nick doesn't have that much IRL power. But so to me, I think if you were to look objectively, what has caused more people to accelerate this timeline, more people to give up on America, more people to give up on Republicans, it would be the last 2 years, year and a half of the Trump administration, which is all.
So you would agree with me. You would agree with me that we should vote Republican. You would agree that the accelerationists should vote Republican to show the people that Republicans can't do the thing. And in my position, I would say that you should vote Republican so that we can stave off the coming I don't give a damn about the browning of America.
No, because for me, I would agree. But no, I know. But the for me, it's like the win condition for me is to incur, like exactly what Nick is saying, to incur a change of essence at the bottom of the heart. Like when we think of a base level Republican, we're not thinking of someone with a MAGA hat. We're thinking of Zeb Boykin, right? Like that's like that, we're changing and getting further along. I guess my argument back to that is your thing is you want to prolong this long enough to get a chance to infiltrate the DNC. But if you keep voting for the current administration is what's actually making that harder for you. You know what I'm saying? Like they have,
sure. That's an option. Yeah.
Right. And I guess I just,
you asked for like a baseline possible political solution. So, I was kind of tossing that out there along with secession, and I don't think there is a political solution. I would prefer not war. I don't think people understand how bad war actually is. And
right.
And maybe I can drive this home a little bit better here. It's like if you're in high school, you had group projects in high school, and I alluded to this earlier on stream. Group, the Marine Corps and football and football in college or wherever, sports, whatever. If anybody's ever played anything, and you have group punishment, it's like that person that is holding you down, and many times it's more than one. It's not going to do better because, well, then everybody else is getting punished and the punishment is lighter on the person that's doing more. It's like you have to punish that individual. And accelerationism is that. It is a group punishment. It is a group project. And the people that aren't doing anything anyway are not going to do more because they're accelerating. They're more than likely going to do less because they're more doomer people. They're more black pilled. They're more depressed. They're more drugged up. They're smoking the goy nip, right? To try and lay this out is why it's like you're hoping and praying that, please just wake up. It's like I just can't get there. And even stacked along that, even stacked on top of that is the assumption that there is going to be some type of coalition, some type of community build after that. And I just don't see it because we can't do that. I mean, that we've been trying for 100 years, and it's just not going to happen fast enough to make a difference if acceleration is going to happen, which is the argument for delay.
Well, look, I guess I view that almost in the complete opposite. I view the framing of voting for the lesser of two evils as the doing the same. Like that to me is the hitting your head against the wall. It's like, let's do it one more time. Maybe we'll break through this time. Like that to me is like the insanity element, if you will, right? To use the words of Nick. And I guess the way I view it is, and from people like Jeff Younger, a lot more of the pragmatists, they view this as like a 20 to 30 year, like at any moment, right? No matter what way it takes place, like something might happen, or we're going to like the wealth will fall to a certain level. It's going to get bad. So I view the accelerationists of like, let's do something we haven't done yet, right? Which is let's go a little bit into the argument of like a lot more is orchestrated than what we're led to believe. So if that's the case, then let's throw a real wrench into the system. Let's have our behavior not even match what we're saying or doing, which would be to accelerate in the sense, which is to not vote or to throw a spoiler candidate. And I guess to me, it's like, going back up and voting for someone from the MAGA crowd, because that's who it's going to be. It's going to be someone, it'll be J.D. Vance, or it's going to be Rubio, or it'll be Stephen Miller, or it'll be Hegseth. It'll be one of these guys that came along with Trump administration. We're all waiting for when J.D. Vance is going to start attacking Trump so he can start clearing the way for himself to move on. To me, it's like that is, I find it to be almost a waste, right? It's almost like, why even show up? Who cares? Because to me, it's almost like there's almost no different. They're like destroying it in different ways. Like, sure, the left.
So you're already accelerated. You want everyone to be like you, to just opt out. And so that's kind of the point, is that you're already there. You and Nick and everyone else that wants to remove themselves from the system for the hopes that maybe there's a candidate later on down the road. But that's exactly what's going to happen if you even get your way with the accelerationism. People are just going to opt out of the system, and the system's not going to go anywhere. I mean, the assumption is that with accelerationism is that the system doesn't change, that it's not going to evolve. But I would say that the system is the most evolving thing that we have right now, right? We've evolved from a republic to a quasi-democracy to a kleptocracy to a fascist state or from an oligarchy to a kleptocracy to a fascist state. That's what we have. I mean, it's the most evolving system that we have, the most evolving thing that we have, and the system can just adapt faster than you can accelerate. And so when you do accelerate, you're just opting people out of the system so that it can accelerate its issues faster.
Well,
does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying.
I don't want to I don't want to straw man anything on your position or just, I guess, general acceleration. So if I am, point that out to me, but I feel like I have a decent understanding of it. I mean, I would have called myself an accelerationist at one point.
Well, my contention would be, like the opting out. Here's the thing is, like, I think people in the Groyper, like, who are taking the acceleration advice of like Nick, vote for a spoiler candidate. I think that's by definition not opting out. That's wielding your vote in a different way. It's like using your vote as an asset. To me, I think
we can't say Ye was a spoiler candidate though.
Well, truth
I mean,
be
that's
told,
what
though,
we have to go on though, is the problem.
But that's pre-generational run though. You know what I mean? This is when he has less than 100K followers on Rumble. We haven't tried it when he's been, proliferated on a bunch of Instagram reels. But I guess I would go back to the fact that I think the people you're talking about, the ones who are just like, they're out of the system, they're not going to care, are the people who went into 2024 and voted for Trump. Like, they're not probably people who aren't listening to Nick, because if they're listening to Nick, he already told them don't vote for him. So if they went in and voted for Donald Trump and this is what they're getting, I think those are the exact people you're talking about. It's not the ones who are going to be trying to go vote for a spoiler candidate and are showing up for Fishback in Florida. It's the people who voted, with their red hat on, expecting Trump to wield mass deportations, golden age, and what they got was the complete opposite. And I imagine it's going to be those same people who are like, they're not going to care about it. It's like the escapism of the libertarians. It's like they don't even care anymore. Like, don't bother me with it. Leave me alone. I'm just going to go home and pretend none of this even exists. And like, that is the actual opt-out to me, which is not even voting, not paying attention, and not even caring, which I would say I think that's fundamentally different than using accelerationism for a short period. Because, as soon as, if we got what we got with accelerationism, right?
Yeah, but it's not a short period.
Well, I think that's part of the debate, right? How long would you need to force the GOP on its knees to get what you want? I would agree. I think there's a debate there. Would that happen in 4 years or not?
No, once it starts, it goes. There is no undoing. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier, is that once you start accelerationism, there is no undoing. What is done politically from a political positioning cannot be undone. It's like I was alluding to the Biden administration. I mean, the entire administration, the 4 years was fraudulent. And even on top of that, you have fraudulent auto pins. And so what's been done about that? What's been undone about that? Nothing. And I would even say that even if you did have a Hitlerian Trump, there would be nothing undone about that. I would still say the elections wouldn't be secured. I would still say deportations wouldn't happen. I mean, you could put me or you in that position and it still wouldn't happen. And that's kind of largely the problem, is the system is not elected officials. The system isn't run spoiler candidates. So, right, the system runs on its own. It evolves by itself. But even beyond that, I would say, if we're talking about spoiler candidates, and I was tossing Ye out there because, it's easy. It's a layup. But we're talking about spoiler candidates. We don't even need spoiler candidates in some situations. We have arguably Casey in Ohio, and I think that you would agree with me that advocating not voting for Casey is accelerationism and delusional. But that's your home, and I'm sure you feel it hits a little bit harder here when someone says don't vote for Casey. We need Vivek to win, so that he can run against Amy Acton. And now you have Amy Acton, the Democrat, that's going to flood the country with illegals, or Vivek that's going to, flood the state with illegals, and Vivek that's going to flood the state with data centers and Indian H-1Bs. It's like, why do we need a spoiler candidate? We have Casey, and in the same sense, and I know I'm speaking specifically on Nick here, you advocate for voting for Fishback in Florida, and I just think that's delusional. That's the wrong take. Like, it's not even close.
Have you been following any of the recent polling data with Fishback? He's been clawing ground in Florida right now.
No, I'm sure he has. My argument isn't not vote for Fishback. My argument is that to shun Casey and push Fishback. I think these are two basically the same discussion in the same framing.
So and trust me, I agree with you. And
I'm not
obviously,
anti-Fishback. I wouldn't endorse him, but I would advocate voting for him if
yeah,
that's where we're at.
And the thing is, I think with Fishback, a lot of people just have, because he has the cadence of Vivek, he has like a bit more of the coastal elite kind of appearance. Like he has, because of that, I think people are a bit more just like psychologically kind of like distant from him. Where Casey doesn't have that, right? Casey is like literally your everyday man. He doesn't even have to try to appear genuine. I guess the thing with Casey was, well, for one, he did run a little bit late, but it was really telling to see a lot of people who came out and push like hard against Casey because of what he said about Donald Trump in one post. And now this is a kind of a different of a side argument.
Did you watch his video yesterday? Was it that day?
I'm gonna watching it later tonight. Actually.
Oh, you haven't watched it, dude?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Banger. Absolute banger, dude.
He
played him like a fiddle, but the problem is he already laid it out. He fed it to him and he laid it out and they took it, and the issue he's going to have overcoming is undoing that.
Right.
Which I said before he even pushed his video. But that being said, go ahead.
And that's and that's kind of the thing too, which I looked at it and I was like, they're going to attack him for being unprofessional because of what he said that everybody agrees with about Trump is retarded. Like, it would have been made more sense had they been like, oh, why did he run this late? We didn't even know he didn't have the signatures yet at this point. That would have been a more reasonable criticism of that. But even then, it would have been like, who cares? I guess with the argument with Nick, and I have a bit of a disagreement with their strategy too, because I truly don't understand it. I guess with Fishback, he was more willing to give the endorsement, kind of like similar to how Trump does these things in closer races. Right. And I think this goes back to a bit of what we're talking about with Nick is, in my opinion, maybe a little hesitant on getting an idea of how much IRA power he has now, which is I think the reason why he didn't, he didn't endorse either of them for a little bit. He was hesitant. And I think part of that plays into it, which is he's not ready to see or wield it yet. Let's let it sit for a second. Fishback now with the polling data numbers coming out, I think it's a pretty easy endorsement at this point. I think he's only down like 12 or 13 points now. And there's other polling data that's more.
No, he's doing good.
Yeah, so it looks really good. I guess in the general sense, though, I can't bring myself to vote for a Republican again. I can't, because it's going to be exactly more of the same. And I think what ends up happening when you do this, like to me, I think to not opt out of the system, to not get men to be like F it all. Instead, give them something else they can do that doesn't capitulate to the GOP being what it has been, which is the spoiler candidate. I get your argument of once it goes, it's not coming back. But I think that goes against what you said earlier, which is the system changes. We are in a very breathable, like the system is breathable right now. And I think with huge umbrella items like Israel, like Epstein happening right now, we're about to experience World War III potentially with Iran. There's a lot that could happen that could change like premises we have right now and assumptions we have right now. I guess I feel a bit more optimistic. Like I feel the view of crushing the GOP is the optimistic view. Instead of
maybe we just fundamentally disagree on what the system is.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on the element that it is more than just the politicians who are going in the office. I agree with that. My point is I think there comes a point where that can't be too far away from culture. So my argument would be, how could you have a culture filled with a bunch of Christians and Christian nationalists, but then you're getting DNC churn out AOC candidates? It's impossible. It wouldn't happen. Well, money, I agree with that. But if you had a stronger, more culturally Christian society that would stand up and be harder to penetrate with elements like that, I mean, I think it would be incumbent. Like, this is kind of the argument, which is, politics is downstream from culture. That's why I think it matters to support these kinds of things. But go ahead.
I mean, I say money, and that's just one take of it, right? Not everyone is for sale. I would largely agree with that. I would say maybe Massey. I got some questions that I would toss out right now with the Zora Ranch issue. But it's also, we live in this surveillance state that everyone is just so like, you don't even need money now. We don't need Epstein. We don't need the blackmail. We have images of you doing everything. Right. We have videos of you doing everything. Like, you can't hide. And you don't even need to be bought. The money is just to retain the seats. The money is just for show for portion of it, even with AIPAC. It's like, yeah, they bought politicians, but they didn't buy the politicians. The politicians are stuck. They're there with blackmail. They bought the politicians so that they can retain the seat. And so it's not that the system itself is right. The system, the structure, the not even the people that occupy it, but they including the people that occupy it. It's not that evolves. It's that the people pulling the strings across the board evolve faster because they already have everything planned out 10, 15, 20, 100 years in advance. Because they are a monolith. They have time, they have the money, they have the ability, they have the cohesion across the board globally to facilitate all this. And so the only solution is to destroy the system. And accelerationism doesn't destroy the system, it just strengthens it. When I say the system, I mean the people at the top. And so even if you are able to accelerate America to a point where it's not an economically efficient place for them to play ball in, then you're left with the concrete jungle, and then they're going to go play ball in East India or in East Asia. It's like this thing is self-defeating.
Well,
I'm not even granting my position that is right. I just think there's no solution at all, which would lend to the idea that we're the end times. But
right.
whether it's biblical or not biblical end times, something's coming.
Well, so for me, I guess I view it as in the sense of like, I do think given the current situation we're in, like it is very, a lot's up to chance. And the argument coming into 2024 was exactly what you were laying out here. This is what the Trump administration was basically saying. This country won't survive 4 years of Kamala. Well, believe it or not, we're about to figure out if we can survive 4 years of Gavin Newsom, because it's essentially what we're going to get. And in part, this is another story, but I don't think JD Vance will be able to stand up to anybody who runs against him unless he starts soon and immediately beginning to distance himself from the Trump administration, because I don't know how you could carry that. So if we're kind of moving,
he started.
With these, he has started. Going at some of the Senate Republicans. I guess with that kind of assumption, though, right? What do you think that another 4 years of a galvanized left-wing base would do? And then fast forward that again. Say we get, now we're 8 years down, we're in 2032. Now we do get the Republican who comes back. Say it's Fishback. Fishback survived through the governor race and he comes out and now he's a top candidate for the right. But what if he gets capitulated, he does the same thing again and garners in another 4 more years of a progressive? Like, to me, that pathway is acceleration. Where we are right now is we have already accelerated. All of the previous, from Bush to Obama to you could throw in every Republican we voted for since Reagan. They've all accelerated this problem. But I would argue that came in a more natural way, right? That's like a natural acceleration, like a seditious form of acceleration.
I would say that that's not accelerationism, though.
Well,
right.
correct.
And so if we have an option of slow the roll with Trump or speed it up with Kamala, the acceleration would be Kamala. If we have an option of Biden Trump or Hillary Trump, or go back to I don't even know who was before that, Obama McCain. When we're looking at these things, it's like the accelerationist option is the worst option, more than likely. But even you said yourself that this first year of Trump has, moved people more than a Kamala presidency would. And so if your positioning is to accelerate, to wake people up, I think that's self-defeating, even just looking at the last year of the Trump presidency. Right? If we're waking people up, given the Trump presidency, more people than Kamala would have, more than likely, isn't that self-defeating on its face?
Well, I would argue that the people who are jaded from Trump are those who are opting out completely. Right? They're the ones, like, that is the demoralization. Right? They're the ones who have they've walked away. Whereas I wouldn't say, like,
but I would argue that is the inevitability of any and all acceleration. That's the inevitability of waking people up to the idea that the system doesn't work. That's my contention, is that in practice, life experience is that saying, group punishment, saying that, you're going to be punished, is everyone that is actually putting in the effort just opts out.
I hear what you're saying. I guess for me, like the win condition is, and it may be different for others, but I think for most people, the win condition is what obviously the problem is that we don't have a true right wing. Well, in the Republican sense, right? The GOP sense. What we have is a controlled, functioning element, essentially an asset, a wing of the government that allows people to come in and make some money here and now. And they really don't do anything beyond capitulate and continue what was already kind of predetermined based on all the other exterior elements, namely things like Israel, foreign interest, huge donors, etc. But I guess my to solve that problem, right? Like I'm not trying to accelerate because I want the country to burn to the ground. Although I do think, and I am kind of black-pilled, I have to admit, I am black-pilled. I go to Walmart all the time. I look around. I'm
me
just
too.
like, it's cooked.
I'm not immune to it.
Right?
Dude, it gets to you. Doing this stuff every day, speeding through the news every day, it is extremely black-pilling.
Right. No, I agree. And that's what, to me, that's why I think I see all of this. That's why I can't go the revolution route. You know what I mean? Like if we can even get men to stand up for themselves in like their own individual context, let alone like forget organizing, forget what that group would look like. And then you look, who would be the file and rank anyways, right? It'd probably be a bunch of people who'd be terrified even to be next to anyways. Like, is this guy, this guy's schizo? So I view that as like, what I want to fix is the fact that we don't have a representative body for the actual right wing. One that can have a Zeb Boykin on it on one side, and one that can have an Atlas Thugged on the other side. Disagreements, but can both be in this right-wing party. But we can't have that right now because of all the gatekeeping elements. So that's, to me, what I'm trying to solve with the accelerationism, right? It is to force the GOP to its knees, force people to look at that specific problem, the problem of the GOP, not the entire situation at hand, which is just the rampant degeneracy, the co-opting ownership, but the very specific message to like the right wing of like, no, let's pincer and let's crush them. Let's take over for us. Because even if it didn't go the route of co-opting the GOP, which does have a lot of money into it, I would be much more privy to like supporting like AFA, right? Who you interviewed, right? The American Fashion Party or AFP, right? Or the Constitutionalist Party, like finding another banner to put under. But again, part of the reason why I think this is such a hard play and such a hard pull for a lot of us is because in the general dissident right wing at large, who's our financiers? Where's the billionaire that agrees with Christian nationalism? And that's always been kind of like this big missing kind of omittance from our group, which is why I agree heavily with Nick, which is I think the best thing to tell young men right now is to work hard, level up, whether you agree with looks, Maxie, or not. I think charisma plays a huge role, financials, as well as just being a general.
I agree with all that. I think that is foundational.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I can. Let me start here. I like analogies a little bit, and you are a fitness influencer yourself. It's like you're arguing for the accelerationist specifically to the Republican Party or the GOP, and it's like, okay, somebody comes to you and say, all right, Atlas, can you put me a plan together where I just want to target the fat loss on my stomach? Or I just want to fix the flabby arms that I have. And it's like, okay, here's your accelerationist positioning to run on the treadmill. This will lose weight on your stomach, but you're also going to lose your ass. And so this is where we're at, is that, okay, we can accelerate the GOP. Like, that's no issue. But in so accelerating the GOP, we're going to accelerate across the board. And again, I mean, we go back to this idea that it is just a terminal losing position to then say, all right, maybe there's a winning condition on the other end. You mentioned a winning condition. I kind of spaced out for a half a second, or either got
the winning condition would just
else,
be
but
a GOP, a Republican Party that actually is representative, not one that's controlled.
Yeah. Okay. So then we go back to kind of where we started this thing off is, does voting matter? Will voting ever matter?
Well,
I think the answer is no. And I think you agree with me.
I don't, because I do think it would be like if Fishback wins, what would be your position on voting if Fishback wins?
What would say that again?
So, like, say if Fishback wins because he ran a campaign despite being attacked for being a meme candidate, but he's pushing, he's galvanizing, he's doing all of the quote unquote.
We're talking state.
Yeah, state.
I have no issue with state elections right now.
Okay, so
specific state.
So okay. That's actually a good clarification.
Virginia, fucked. Virginia will never have a foothold in Virginia ever again.
Okay. So it's contextual based on location.
Sure. Yeah. National elections will never matter ever again.
Interesting.
And so even taking the position of voting for a third party candidate or an off candidate or even voting for the Democrat, I think holds no water. But I advocate for a state election all the time, right? I think I started off my solo show. One of the first episodes was laying out the groundwork for why the governor positioning is the most effective way to take back the government, take back the system, the government, to win in any sense. And it's because the lobbying at the state level is significantly less, like exponentially less than it is at the national level, right? You know, you have 50 states instead of DC, along with just the general funding that's coming from that. And so, you know, I think Virginia's done. We'll never get Virginia back. There's a couple of northern states that we'll never get back. California will never win again. Arguably Texas pretty soon. Tennessee's pretty close too.
Michigan will be up there too.
We kind of have to take these one at a time a little bit here, but you know, I have no issue with Fishback winning in Florida at all, really. I have no issue with Casey or even Vivek winning in Ohio. Contextually, meaning, you know, the votes matter.
Yeah. Well, then let me go do next step then. Say Casey wins governorship, Casey runs for president. You would be all in on. But say, following this track, Casey's blackballed, right? They call him a meme candidate. Casey runs as an independent. What would you do in that situation, 2020? Would you vote independent for Casey Putsch? Like, would that be where your vote would go? Or would you go back to where we were at, which is you would vote Republican to maintain
in the national election?
Yeah, in the national election.
Again, I just don't think it matters. I would vote for Casey, but I just don't think it matters.
Interesting. Well, that's kind of the argument, right? Which is, if it doesn't matter, then like let the accelerationists do what they want.
Well, at the national level, yeah. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. It's like, I mean, we're gonna get quasi accelerationist or neo accelerationist or accelerationist regardless. The question is, you know, how hard is the pedal going to be pushed? Yeah.
Well, right. And
I mean, we get 250,000 deportations from Donald Trump. You know, don't quote me, self-deportations, but then literally the same breath, we're talking about 600,000 Chinese student visas. It's like these two things are not one and the same. I mean, that's a net negative immigration.
Right. Well,
and so it is accelerationist, but it's not Kamala accelerationist 10 million. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. I guess the better way to say it would be like, voting Republican gives you the base speed of losing America by the rate of 2 years. You know, for every year Republicans in office, America degenerates by like 2 years. Whereas a Democrat, it degens like 6 years for every year that they're in office. And I guess for me, I would just argue I find that difference to be negligible. I'm not gonna be able to say it. No, I'm not going to do the Candace Owens routine here. But I would find it to be not too much of a difference to not take the chance to see if you could get the GOP. But here's my kind of thing too, right? Now I feel like the communist here, but like I feel like accelerationism is it's always attacked very heavily for these reasons, because we know how tight the two parties are in the system. But we saw what Ross Perot is still talking about to this day for what he was able to do during his election. I think it would be incumbent at least to try, now that we're like 30, 40 years removed from that, let's try one more time. Because if you're already saying it doesn't matter in the national election, I'm kind of sitting here saying, well, what do we have to lose? Does that make sense?
With voting for the other side?
No, for voting for a spoiler. Like, no. I would not
voting
vote
for a spoiler,
like
if you said Casey ran as an independent.
Yeah, like if Casey ran as an independent or Massey ran as an independent, because for me it'd be either just like not showing up, or it'd be voting for the independent, or someone who's in the primary for Republicans, that's not like MAGA or Team.
Well, I mean,
RNC
really,
or
it wouldn't
Connie.
be anything new. I mean, we've ran independent candidates. I mean, even the last Libertarian candidate was on all 50 ballots, so it's not like something out of the ordinary. I think he pulled like 1%, but the year before the election before that, he pulled like to 2.5%. Right, and I think even if it was Casey that ran or some, I mean, even like name some nationalist that actually has a standing like I don't know, Brandon Herrera. Run Brandon Herrera at on a spoiler candidate, and they're still going to get 2%, 3% maybe, and so you're kind of left with this idea. This is also assuming you have party backing. You can't just run as an independent.
Yeah.
And the Libertarian Party doesn't have the funding. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the call logs. They don't have literally a party backing them with dozens of people in every single city across the nation, every single county across the nation. And so these things can't be built up. It's not like you just have a spoiler candidate.
Well, I think
so
we might
all
see
that
one,
being
though,
said,
in Florida, right?
all that being said,
well, one thing, because Fishback running against Byron, right? Byron got a war chest to the tune of like it's something like $45 million or $55 million when nobody was running against him in the race. In Fishback,
these are
running the social media campaign. No, you're good. You're good. He's running the social media campaign is about to outcompete him off of like what was his funding from Fishback was like $900 is like in his war chest for Fishback. I mean, like, so to me, I feel like there's examples we're having right now that is showing you with enough charisma, with enough perfect time things, you can circumvent the funding because you can win the culture. And that was where I was going back with my argument, which is I think there's a tether there where politics uniquely cannot go too far from culture. And so if you had 50 Fishbacks running in 50 different states, it's like the GOP has nowhere to go. They can't go much further beyond that kind of oppositional stance to Fishback. Because going anywhere beyond that, people would begin to see, oh, okay, they're really not with me. They're really out over here. Maybe we do need someone else like different. Maybe we do need a different party because it seems to be too many irreconcilable differences. Lord forgive me, but go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I mean, but again, I think this is a state election and it's also a primary election. So I don't think the weight of the party system itself carries as much, right? You can look at even Bloomberg on a primary election where he's spending $55 billion versus everyone else and still not making that meet. Money doesn't win elections, especially when it's a primary election. Now, a general election, I just think is a completely different animal. But the argument is, I guess, more of a nationalist election than what we're talking about here at a state level. I think a state level, right, like Florida, whoever wins the primary is going to win the state more than likely, given that how red Florida is. Though it is getting more blue as we talk. Right. It's been a purple state the last couple of elections actually. So I mean, it's possible.
Because you bring up Bloomberg, and I think that's actually a good example. Bloomberg, I think, was notoriously right. He had like multiple hit pieces in a row written about him. I think it was the soda tax specifically that like really was like what was weighing him down. But the same way that Bloomberg would have never been able to respond to anything the way Fishback can. Bloomberg just generally lacked the charisma. Like he wasn't that kind of guy. Whereas like Fishback, I think there's already been multiple hit pieces about him. They're just not sticking because he can dance around it. So that's what I'm saying was like, I think there's more variables that are at play than simply just like the positions of the character and the money behind it.
I think your argument is a little bit backwards, right? Bloomberg is the one that had funding with no charisma. Fishback is the one with no funding and charisma. I think these are two separate things, right? We would have to argue that Byron Donalds is the one with no charisma. I think Byron Donalds does have a little bit of charisma, though he is. I mean, just on its face of being an anchor baby should be disqualifying.
Right, I agree with you.
And so if that's who Fishback is, running against, I think he has grounds to win, on his face, but I just don't think the party politics matters that much. And I wish we had more to pull from than just specifically right now Ohio and Florida. It would be nice if there was more high profile races out there.
Right. Well, it's disappointing in Ohio because the polling
nationalistic
data is so behind. They're like months behind. We're getting data from like
it's bad, dude. I've been trying to find it.
It doesn't
it's
exist.
terrible. It's intentionally terrible.
Right.
It's intentionally terrible.
I agree. And you know why it's even more intentionally terrible was because at the beginning when because Vivek announced extremely early, they had
The polls don't matter
sponsored.
anyway in their lives.
Right, well, I knew you were going to say that. The Republicans sponsored the first two polls in the race. There was like a bunch of money got infused into the early polling numbers, and now I'm sitting here trying to find Casey, polling data on Casey Push, and he's not even on the polling data because we're getting
It doesn't exist.
It's from Bowling Green from October. So to that point,
we don't even know if he's going to be on the ballot. We don't even know what's going to be on the ballot right now. I mean, he has his numbers, he has the petitions and everything, but
I thought he said he got confirmed.
it? I can't remember.
I thought he said he did.
I might have missed that. I apologize.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
I could be
was,
wrong too.
Was that the other
I
day?
just can't remember the X post I saw. But I don't want to.
I would assume he got confirmed.
I know you have the members only stream coming up, man. I don't want to keep you too much longer.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anything you want to say? Anything you want to end on?
No, dude. Thank you for having me. I mean, I just want to, establish that, we're friends and chat shouldn't take anything personal, even though they're all retards. No, I appreciate you having me on. I enjoyed it, and I gotta go clown a couple of clowns. So
yeah, I saw the thumbnail. I like it. Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on.
You like that?
We gotta do this more often.
Nah, thank you, dude. All right, brother. Take it
Peace
easy.
out and good luck. I'll see you next time, man.
Yes, sir.
And
thank you, chat.
I don't know if they said any good things or not.
They said I won, obviously. They said I won, obviously. I won. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they had you on both sides of that.
I think we lose no matter what. At least in the short term. In the long term, we win. I do want to let me make this one point real quick. Let me make this one point.
Okay.
The idea, we talk about being black-pilled and kind of removing ourselves from the system. I don't want to get in the position of dispensationalists where, at the end of the world's coming, Jesus Christ is coming back. So why try at all? And I think that's a defeatist mentality. It's a suicidal mentality. It's a genocidal mentality. And I don't want to, regardless of whether you're accelerationist or not, kind of opting out and not applying yourself across the board is just is worse than not. And I'm not saying vote specifically, but I'm saying not doing anything because I quit, right? And I had a couple of analogies on that one too, right? So if you look at a basketball team that's down and their demographics are dark, they give up, right? I've coached a couple of teams. I've been on a couple of teams. The darker the demographics, the faster they quit when they're down points.
Interesting.
It's just in their nature. We can tackle that another day too, but
yeah, no, definitely. But I appreciate you coming on, man. Good luck with members only stream. And for anybody who wants to watch Zeb on your members only, catch him there at Zeb Boykin. Link is in the description. Actually, I have it in there. If I did my job, it should be in there. But for anybody who wants to stick,
dude.
Say that again.
I said I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And for anybody who wants to stick around, I'm going to be covering a couple of things before I end the night as well myself here. I'm just going to be covering some basic news, but I'll go ahead and get Zeb out of here so he can go on do things on his own channel. But we appreciate you for being here, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one, brother.
Thank you, man. And appreciate you guys for being here for all of that. I know a lot of you probably came from Zeb Boykin's channel. I've been meaning to get that done for a hot minute. I wanted to bring Zeb in to have an actual conversation, like sit down, because obviously I've been seeing a lot of what Zeb has been posting on the timeline, seeing his disagreements, and it's funny, right? I see Nick post something, I'm cheering it, and then I see Zeb quote it, and he was like, I hate this, so we have some obviously disagreements on the strategy here. I saw a couple sewer chats. I apologize, I missed one from GeoGastro. I'm going to catch it on the other side here. This one is from Titan. He says, the point is not giving up. White man unite. Agreed. And that's kind of the thing I want to, push, this kind of big takeaway, is what I mean with the financial element, and I think this is kind of the biggest thing. And the thing that's not talked about enough. I think a lot of people want to talk about all the political solutions and who to vote for. But it does stick out to me that we do not have a strong financial base. Like who is going to be funding the Kenny KO collab with Nick Fuentes, right? Like if that would ever never happen. But it's a massive missing element. And so, you're not going to expect Les Wexner is going to be, donating $1.1 billion to like the Nazi Heil Fund, right? Like it's just not going to happen. So that's why I think the number one thing beyond anything political, any kind of like strategic element, the number one thing would be you do need to improve yourself. You do need to be capable, Because if you're in a position where you have enough money that you're paying your bills and whatnot, and I get it's a tough economy, but if you are able to actively, vote with your dollars, if you will, right? Or vote with literally voting with your money, but you can allocate your resources towards things you want to see more of, and that's the position that you should be striving for, being able to actually manipulate and push influence on the things that surround you. So that's why I agree heavily with the takeaway from Nick, which is to be a pillar in your community. Make money, but don't ask me how, if you will. But thank you, Titan, for that. I think the other one came from GeoGas, so let me go and grab it here. That was like at the very beginning. Thank you very much for the super chat, guys. I appreciate it. This one I literally cannot read, so give me a second. Give me a second. From GeoGas3 says, are accelerationists closeted fascists in the sense that they know we need gore to reverse things, but they need more abuse, that action to feel justified? That's funny. I have always been, I think, a bit open about why I am an accelerationist, and that typically stems from my disbelief in the common man around me. That's not to say like I don't believe in you guys, but it is to say, for one, accelerationism in and of itself, you already have arguments from people in this space that argue that accelerationism is evil. I think that's a stretch. And I think on that same logic, you could argue that revolution is evil. And then it becomes a bit circular and it becomes nonsensical. So the reason why I am an accelerationist is because I do view it to be an exhaustive step before revolution. Accelerationism is like essentially an attempt to negatively affect change, ultimately being wielded and being used in different formats. But I view it as exhausting all options before we do throw our hands in the air and put the nation in jeopardy. And the reason why I say that is because you really don't know what you're going to get when you do jeopardize the nation. Or quite literally, you can look at the situation in Australia and you can see how the more militant tactics is playing out with them. And there's many of them that are being thrown in prison. They're being thrown in solitary confinement. They're being, groups are being disbanded. You're seeing whole entire Telegram chats fall apart. And so you have to think about, and for one, this is a position from people like Stonequire, right? They view Hitler as a loser. And they view part of what we are going through right now as one of the failures of Hitler. So let me make a bit more sense with that. So for example, say we did have somebody, we'll be hypothetical here. We use somebody like Zeb as an example, right? Say Zeb, Zeb galvanizes this base. He has a lot of good things going. It seems very, very, it's worthwhile. He's organizing. But what happens is if they make a misstep, or they cross a line, or they do something, or one of the guys in that group does something that ultimately jeopardizes the entire operation. Well, what will happen is the clampdown from the government that you attempted to try to overthrow or push a coup, or in that same sense of get rid of their power, they're going to respond in kind. They're going to literally absolutely obliterate and crush you. And so you have to consider that, which is, as much as it's like, it's easy to say, yeah, the whole thing needs to burn, you need to think about how you do that strategically, because doing it retardedly will ultimately end up for putting your children and your brothers in a worse position. That's what we have to avoid. It's not to say we're actively pushing against it. It's to say, knowing what we're up against, knowing we're in a surveillance state, throwing those things around casually and loosely, seemingly to me, is a very, very weak and non-strategic position. It puts you, yourself, and your loved ones and everyone else in a position to have things happen and be much worse. Let's be honest, man, things can get a lot worse. It's pretty bad, but it can get much worse. And I think Australia needs to serve as that example of what's happening in terms of their discourse. And just look at other countries like the UK as well. It can get a lot worse. Let me catch up on chat here. I apologize. I know I've not been doing a good job keeping up with it. Crisis King says, I thought Zeb was a Fed for a while, but I'm not so sure anymore. That's funny. Kozum Bayonne says we should remove our resources from things we do not support. Agreed. Biggest Dickus says accelerationism is always attacked because the system is surprisingly weak, and putting down disorder with hard power is nearly impossible for them. And the thing is part of this is too, like, just there's a natural aversion away from accelerationism because it does also threaten the same things that revolution would as well too, but in a bit more of a delayed sense, in a bit more of an expectational sense than a direct result, if you will. But I think it's attacked for a number of things and a number of reasons. And what can't be understated is the manipulation element, because again, the GOP, they're basically positioned to be gatekeepers. Like, it's almost as if if the GOP did one thing, it would be ensuring that regular white American Christian men like you and me would never feel represented forever, for the rest of our lives. Like, if that was like the one thing it could do, that would be what it would push for, would be that. And so there's a lot of things that you have to really consider and think about in terms of just the overall strategy. But I think accelerationism is vulnerable, though. As somebody who promotes it myself, and I could go back and forth on how far it should take it, and I do go back and forth on a bit of how black-pilled I am, and with Jeff Younger, from a student of Jeff Younger's, I do have in the back of my head a very deep and dark feeling, very similar to Zeb, which is maybe there is no political solution, but I'm not willing to give up yet. And then the Albanian flag, I'm going to ban the Albanian flag from I feel like the only symbol that's banned. The Albanian flag is pretty heat, though, I can't lie. Albanian pride, lovely. Lovely. E2, Brute. Donnie's jumping in on it, too. E2, Brute. I turned around. There's a knife in my stomach. And you, Donnie? You of all people? I would expect it from Josh I. I would expect it from Josh I. And Thunder Whiffen says, good interview, learned a lot. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you for being here, too. I wasn't expecting you to be here. It's funny? At my job earlier today, I actually let it slip that I have a YouTube channel, and the guy was like, he was like, let me, it's funny. So Jay, if you see this, I hope you do. If you made it this far, I don't know if he did. This maybe is very offensive. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? But I let it slip on a YouTube channel, and I typically try to avoid it because I don't want the company I work for to know either. I've been doing this pretty sneakily, and he's looking it up, and the first thumbnail he sees is Yankee versus Confederate, and I was even thinking. But Jay, if you're seeing this, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Leave a comment if you did. I'm going to be looking out for it. But to get into any bit of news, like while we're here, the debate went a little bit longer. I was expecting to be earlier than that, so glad we got some extra minutes. And what was mentioned earlier in there too, it kind of looks like 5 kind of bigger topics, really. Trump transferred is set to try to transfer $10 billion to the Board of Peace. This is kind of a bigger topic that people are reacting to. And I find it to be kind of wild. And in the words of Zeb Boykin, it seems very globalist. This is what we talked about yesterday. The Vatican came out with this statement and they rejected joining the Board of Peace because they said, because the Jews don't recognize Christ, we will not recognize them. Beautiful statement from the Vatican. Prince Andrew was arrested. And in the news, and the highlight of Prince Andrew being arrested, we get these kind of weird statements from Donald Trump saying, I'm so sad. It's just a really sad situation, which is just more of the same. And the other big one would be the executive order that Trump pushed out of glyphosate. And many people might know this, the understanding of this from Roundup or Monsanto or many of the other companies that this has come under. And it's kind of a huge change of tone from where we were at originally, which was to make America healthy again. And that is just quite simply what we're not getting. So a couple of things we can run through. We're just going to be casual. I'm not going to talk your guys' ears off too much. So we'll be casual, go through some of these things one by one. I would say women's sex crimes, I think, is outpacing anything the Catholic Church ever did or ever was accused of. I think if you just looked at the last 2 or 3 years and you looked at white liberal teachers alone, I think it dwarfs whatever has occurred ever, period. That's kind of disturbing. But the other big one was the big moment was the hot mic from Les Wexner. And the Les Wexner hot mic was insane. So we'll actually put a little bit on this here too. I think we'll start here actually. Let's start with the hot mic from Les Wexner. Put this up on screen here. Because this was absolutely wild. I was kind of blown away this moment even happened. Here it is.
It was just regularly done. Answer the question. Okay.
So you might not have heard it that well the first time. I'm going to read the quote and I'll play it again for you. It's quote, "I'll effing kill you if you answer another question with more than 5 words." Okay? And this is supposedly Les Wexner's attorney saying this to him. And by all accounts, it definitely sounds like it. The lawyer is Michael Levy, who formerly was a White House fellow under Clinton. So that's who this individual is, who you see whispering in his ear. So I'll play it again, so listen for it. Kind of wild to say during a deposition. Here it is.
It was just regularly done. Answer another question. 5 words, okay. Answer the question. Okay. It was just regularly done.
Is that not just insane? Is that not just like absolutely like insane? Like, wow. What do you make of that? So you have videos that have been coming out of Lex Wexner's deposition that's been coming out, which has been going back and forth. And House is one of the next ones I was going to bring up as well. They're going to release the extraterrestrial files and start a war to distract from Epstein. Because it was announced by Obama. Let me actually go grab this here for you. Obama brought it to everyone's attention on the national stage. And Trump issued a warning back to Obama for saying what he said, which is just, just a wild, like, what is this timeline? But it was Obama made a statement about there being aliens are real. Now, Trump responded to this from Raw's Alert, saying it was a big mistake to speak on classified sensitive topics publicly. And so they're like, do you think aliens are real? No. I'm here with House. And understand this moment between Barack Obama and Donald Trump is like looking at the Miami Heat poster when Dwayne Wade has just thrown an alley-oop to LeBron James. That's what this is. That's what this moment is. This is not any back and forth of like, oh, like aliens and no, that's not what's happening. It is exactly what House is saying right here. It is a distraction. They're pulling out all of the stops. Everything they possibly can think of. And I had seen, it was like even just a couple of days ago, it was the best, the most clear photo of a UFO ever seen. Really interesting. And what's wild about this, but again, it cannot be understated. When I first saw this story, all I could see in my head was Barack Obama throwing the basketball behind his head and Donald Trump like yamming it into the basket. Like, here we go, teamwork, guys. Cross the aisle, cross politicking here. Tix Balmer says, I don't trust Atlas anymore. What is this video? All right. Why doesn't Tix trust me? It's always Tix, man. And if I pull up something that has Albanians on it, I'm going to put a hole in my monitor.
You learn about World War II all the time.
Oh, dude. Bro, the second word out of this guy's mouth is Albania. Look at this. Look at the stuff that Tix sends me, dude.
Yes or no?
We learn about World War II all the time, and Albania was the only country in the Holocaust that saved every single Jew that came to its borders. So much so that there's even speculation that even possibly Albert Einstein, we may have saved his life. Albania was under Italian and German occupation during the Holocaust, and we were the only country in Europe with more Jews after World War II than before. And not a single Jew perished on our watch. And my grandmother's brothers were hung by the
This
SS,
is the humiliation
by the Nazis.
ritual.
And still, not a single Jew died in Albania. There's plenty of Albanians that could have sold them out and told them where they were hiding or what they were doing, and it never happened. Not on our watch. And I'm very proud.
Did Tix just like straight up Google like Albanians saving Jews? Albanian philo-Semites? Is that like what you just Googled to go find something? Like, where is this video coming from? What are we doing, man? What is going on? This is why this man trusts Fistback so much. Genetic weakness. Get the F out. I do have to say, I feel like I do have very similar facial hair traits to this guy. I've seen a lot more Albanian men, and they do have the thicker, the facial hair that kind of looks black. You know, Tix ain't getting kicked out. We're going to vote you out. It's going to be public.
Proud of that
Be
story.
public.
How come they don't make a movie about that when they
Capital
talk about our people?
punishment.
But they'll show a movie Taken, which make us look like animals.
You
We
look
learn
like
about
you
World War
radical.
II all the time, and Albania was the only country in the Holocaust.
That's funny. I think that's all.
Yes
of
or
it.
no?
I
We learn
don't
about
like
World.
that it cuts off the thing down here. You know what I mean? Anyways. Okay. Stream derailed. Okay. But there's like a few other things that happened today. Elon actually boosted Rupert Lowe, which was kind of funny because Biggest Dickus had actually mentioned Rupert Lowe earlier in the Discord, talking about, you know, an actual right winger coming out and running. Rupert Lowe had basically said to the effect of, you know, don't be ashamed of being a white man. Don't be ashamed of being a white man, which is great and kind of good that Elon Musk had boosted it. Although I don't find Elon Musk to be trustworthy in the slightest bit at all. Ooh. That makes much sense. I was curious why my audio probably sounded different this whole stream, didn't it? No way the NVIDIA broadcast was running in the background that entire time. Hold up. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'm retarded sometimes. Anyways. So the Les Wexner thing was funny. Well, not funny, but it's just kind of crazy that happened. So there's a bunch of videos coming out that's circulating. We can just go to InfoWars coverage real quick for it. Let me grab this. Nothing too extreme in it. You know, there's a Jasmine Crockett video that's circulating as round 2. You know, Jasmine Crockett being, you know, the black queen that she is. Just all of her questions in the clip that I saw was relative to Donald Trump. And it does seem like there's this effort for whatever reason to for the left to just attack Trump and not care about the broader nature of the Epstein files, which what do you make of that beyond are they just idiots or are they playing ball with Trump? Is this part of does this give them, because when the left behaves that way, it lets somebody like Benny Johnson go and say, see, look at Jasmine Crockett. She really didn't want to care about the Epstein files. She just wanted to attack Trump's character. And it's that's what I'm talking about. This between the left and the right, it feels like there's a lot of this alley-ooping going on. It's like they're helping each other build their own cases because the entire goal is to wipe out this nation in more ways than one. Don't be ashamed of being a proud Semitic Abelian fitness influencer. Politics. Get out. Get out. I'm nowhere close to that. I've abandoned all of my former vices. I'm now just a chud. I'm now just a chud. Me and my black hat chud life. Couldn't even get a hat that you can read. Me and my oversized flannels. He called me a cholo back in the day. I proved him wrong. I'm an Albanian. Benny and the Chuds. That's actually great. That's great. Benny and the Chuds. Benny and the Chuds, hosted by Mr. Suds and Piers Morgan's wife. So the alien thing's been going on. There's a crazy video that was going around too, of dancers reenacting the Alex Preddy and the Renee Nicole Good situation. I kid you not, it was the gayest minute I've ever spent on this earth, and I've had a lot of gay minutes spent. Pause. There's been a lot of gay things I've had to experience, and that was one of the top ones for sure. Not enough pauses can be said on those statements there. Anyways, okay. Going to the InfoWars coverage just to bring you guys up to speed on some of this Lex Wexner stuff. Here we are. What's the alien thing? The alien thing is the thing that they use to distract you from understanding what Epstein is, was, did, how, and why it matters. That's why. Yeah, I'm part of that Yale thing. Yep. Yeah, me and Vivek go way back. We know each other on a first name basis. But here's this Lex Wexner clip, and I think InfoWars and Harrison Smith did a solid job on this one.
Experience at an industrial level, like working for a big company like Bear Stearns, and then he had done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
Personal wealth management, essentially?
I don't know.
Okay. We've seen some reports that he would present himself as a bounty hunter, that he would find people's missing money. Do you recall him saying anything like that?
No. Well,
Doing that first clip is kind of one of the second ones, which is this admittance that he hired Epstein because he was like a financial expert. And then when they asked him, what was the credentials for that? He was like, because he worked at Bear Stearns and talked a big game. Basically gave a bunch of non-answers, which is crazy. Because the idea here is like, you gave this guy a bunch of money. Like, why? Like, what made you hire him? And Les Wexner's like just giving non-answers. I mean, you saw the way his lawyer basically threatened him into submission or silence earlier. And another one, you have this admittance though that Epstein, that he doesn't give a strong answer as to why he hired him, but he recalls that because Epstein was like essentially an agent or worked for the Rothschild, that he was like, well, that's good enough for me. And so that's just one of the, this is one of the ones that they're now pushing through here.
Specifically, I talked to Ellie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family, so there had been a whole bunch of people. I mean, most of them I never would have met, but I knew Ellie. I never met people, but there were people that called me that either insinuated or said they knew Jeffrey through a financial relationship. And so, I mean, they could have been actors, but in the time, a guy calls me up. I'll give you an example. It's just no, because I want you to understand this, because it's so confusing to me. He would say, like, I'm providing financial advice to the founders of Google. I'm providing financial advice to Jeff Bezos.
So this is Les, I should say, sitting here and saying, like, it was all confusing to me, like what Jeffrey Epstein did, but it's at the same time, this is somebody who financed Epstein. They're giving him money, a lot of money, but here you are, like, unable to articulate why you're giving him money, like what the reasoning was for, what his credentials were that you even wanted to hire him in the first place. Obviously, in the age thing, it's not involved because it's clear that he's with it. So this is obviously nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, how the hell is there only 55 live viewers? I have no idea. I think I did something the other day on my channel that really hurt it, and I have no idea what that was. So hopefully it corrects. So we'll see. We march forward.
I'm providing financial advice for the chief technologist at Google. And wow, I'm in good company because these are really smart guys with a lot of money. And you have to put yourself in the mindset of if my attorney said, he was qualified to argue in front of the Supreme Court, I'd believe him. I didn't say call the Supreme Court and say, tell me, is he really an attorney or did he do this?
Yeah, it's not like a multi-billionaire CEO ever does due diligence on people that claim extraordinary things.
So this is kind of like where my broad takeaway came in, which was, as I was watching it, it's like we know you gave him so much money. This is just obviously not an answer, and so he's probably just basically answering the way his attorney has trained him to. But I do agree. Became Numa. Humanity is cooked unless they do turn to Jesus Christ, because Christ is King. Forgive me, I'm burping. Like Gosha says, 45 likes don't help either. Yes, like this thing. Smash the like button. Also, I would like to remind people too, you can listen on Apple and Spotify for all of the mainstay episodes. This one will be one of the ones that will make it to Apple and Spotify. I want to make sure people can hear the conversation with Zeb Boykin.
Like, was it perhaps code? Did you ever think to ask him what he meant by financial advice? It's like, yes, I provide financial advice for billionaires all over the globe.
This is Epstein right here, and Wexner on the other side here. I don't recognize any of the other individuals. This guy seems familiar, actually. Interesting.
By financial advice, you mean underage hookers? Then yeah, I'm a prolific provider of the finest financial advice out there, sir. So again, I mean, are we really going to believe this? We're going to believe that a man who founded one of the most successful retail outlets in the history of the world, Victoria's Secret, and all of the other brands you go along with it, the multi-billionaire, signed over a power of attorney and gave billions and billions of dollars to a man that he hadn't vetted? Because
Point made. Point Point made. And that's kind of the gist of what we're getting out of the Les Wexner stuff. So he was great on his relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. That's kind of nothing. But the Rothschild agent, and then obviously the way he's acting here, two different things here. One is spectacles back. I know Harrison Smith got a kind of crazy glasses on. I have similar ones, but I don't really care for them, to be honest with you. This was the one. So this is another thing I wanted to go to. This is actually, I'm mad at myself that I missed it. This is what I wanted to do first. Tucker Carlson and Doug Wilson had a sit down together. And if you're not familiar with Doug Wilson actually was, in my opinion, was the former, some people would still consider him to be, but it was essentially like the big kind of leader in this kind of Christian nationalist space. Now, a lot of things have changed since then, and Doug Wilson is kind of seen as an enemy now by many of those same people now, especially for people like Stone Choir. I think Joe Webben also finds him to be oppositional. Tucker Carlson had a sit down with Doug Wilson. So understand, and in this interview, Tucker Carlson reveals that he is actually further to the right on the Jewish question than Doug Wilson is. And this is really revealing for a lot of different reasons. And so I think Tucker did a pretty solid job here, but you guys know how I feel about Tucker. It's just understanding the fact that the culture has moved so quickly because of the political news revolving around Israel, that it is sped up so quickly that now we have people who are outside the Christian nationalist space are to the right of Christian nationalists on the Jewish question. So this is kind of a crazy place to be at. And so watch this interview. It's about an 8-minute clip here. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But I had seen it from Cody Justice. Cody Justice, who I believe is he's the co-host there with Michael Spangler. Put it on screen here. He says, "Love to see Doug get bested." I thought was wild, because then I started watching it and I was like, holy crap. Tucker's like working Doug Wilson here. But alas, here we go.
Apart from our defense guarantee is meaningless.
Well,
what's its strategic importance other than that? Are there trade routes that go through it? They have a ton of oil we need? Like, what is this? You're like, well, we have to be more closely allied with Israel than any other country. It's like, well, why? And no one can answer you. Well, because they're threatened. Well, so are a lot of countries. They're not alone in having neighbors that don't like them. But why is that my problem?
the people who don't like them, the Muslims, surrounding Muslim countries, are also people who don't like us. And Muslims...
Who specifically? Which government are you talking about?
Okay, that's the government of Dearborn, Michigan.
A lot of the Muslims in Dearborn are Christian. Well, I mean, a lot of the Arabs in Michigan are Christian, so just like in point of fact. And I'm okay with them because they're fellow Christians, even though they look different. But I rate that against the actual threats.
Well, think of it this way. I've seen the England, and currently every major city in England is governed, it has a Muslim mayor. Their immigration policy has been disastrous like ours. Someone could argue, as I would, that the Muslims who are threatening Israel are Muslims who are threatening us. Islam is a greater threat.
Tucker's reaction, that is retarded. A couple more chats in here. Six Semper, I can't even read that, it's dark blue. Six Semper Tyrannis. 226 says, when Yankees say the Civil War was about slavery, they're half right. We're all slaves now. We've been enslaved to the Zionist machine for a hot minute. I don't do any of the speed enhancements because I know people do listen to the podcast at a faster speed. And so if I put the video in that, but I'm not at 1.5 times speed, it just becomes a mess. But that's part of the reason. It's just I take it to Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Than the Jews.
Yeah, is the problem with the Muslims of Europe that they're too Muslim or that they're criminals?
Well,
I mean,
that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's not though, actually, and it's not. And
no, the Muslim.
Let me ask you this, and I'm totally not for Islam. Okay, I'm a Christian. Why are there twice as many Christians living in Qatar as there are in Israel? Do you think?
Twice as many Christians in Qatar as
in Qatar. Yeah, the Islamist slave state that we hear so much about. But there are twice as many Christians living there as in Israel, and they can leave if they want. They came freely, but there are twice as many in Qatar. Why do you think that is?
Can they build churches?
Yeah, actually, the state gave them the land for their churches. But why is that? If what you're saying is true, because it's not true, actually. The reality that you experience when you get outside the American media biosphere is so different, the reality, from what you're describing. The second question I want to ask is, how do we get all these Muslims here after 9/11? They all came after 9/11.
Yeah.
Who encouraged that, exactly? Who encouraged that? And it's a lot of the same people who are now encouraging us to hate Muslims. ADL.
Oh, ADL.
Completely for that. They encouraged that. So what is that?
to
But I
remind
know
me.
that the same people who are like Islam is the problem are the same people who brought us all these Muslims here.
And so this is why you end up getting this level of a reaction to people like Doug Wilson. Because Doug Wilson is pushing nothing any different than what you would hear from like Laura Loomer. And so this is a huge problem, that if this is like one of the guys who's gatekeeping, and definitely is, all of the kind of Christian nationalist spaces, and there's a little bit more of a robust history than what I'm laying out, but understand that Doug is essentially, he has become a villain to the Christian nationalist space. It's not to say, you know, everything he's ever done is all bad, but he is acting towards Christian nationalists in the same way that Seth Dillon acts towards Republicans, gatekeeping and doing everything in their power to fund, attack, and ensure that these other guys simply cannot, cannot rise through the ranks, or will do things that are like, a little bit more offhanded. It's not to say Doug does these things in and of himself, but it is the people he's surrounded with. It is the group that he is with. And I wish I could remember some of the names of the companies that they're with off the top of my head, but it's been a minute since I've essentially I've ignored a lot of what Doug Wilson and that kind of crowd since. And I got in some arguments on X with him. Not recently, but sometime soon. Or sometime not too long ago.
Right, because
I feel like I'm being played a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with
Always
that.
do.
The same people crying anti-Semitism constantly, telling me I can't have free speech rights because there's anti-Semitism, are the same people telling us we have to hate Muslims because they're Muslim.
Well,
and
not
how
'cause-
is hating Muslims better than hating Jews?
Yeah, it's not.
Exactly.
If you hate Muslims because they're Muslim, that's
The same as hating Jews because they're Jewish.
yeah, correct.
I'm out.
But if you are opposed to Muslims who have read the Quran, which I've done a couple times, I read through the Quran,
Yeah.
and the Muslim Brotherhood, the people, the jihadis,
Right.
are not twisting the Quran.
I'm sure. I wouldn't know. I'm not an
They are
expert.
being consistent with it.
That's so insane. Because the argument that he's about to get to, this is basically as far as I'd seen in my free time before we got on stream here. But it feels like the argument he's about to make is that Muslims actually believe these bad things because it's a part of their religion. He's about to make the argument that what you understand of like what the Jewish faith is like, no, you don't get it. No, you don't understand. No, let's get a rabbi in here to tell you actually what the answer is. It's coming. Uncle House says Michael Chertoff, the Jewish head of Homeland Security under George Bush, on Fox News in 2006, saying that in order to let Muslims know that we are not at war with Islam, we need to allow many more immigrants from Islamic countries come to America. And it's just, and how has that turned out for everybody? Pretty good. We're doing good. More immigration, please. More. Titan, why can't they interview me so I can explain in detail why they're both problematic? Well, because you would probably be you'd be taking your own side. You would be pushing Christianity, not Judeo-Christianity, not Islam. And because of that, well, we can't have you. Because this is a Jewish society, actually, believe it or not, unfortunately.
And I see them as a far greater threat to the West than the state of Israel is. And so protecting Israel from Muslims, you could argue, is a roundabout way of protecting, it's a proxy.
How's that work for us?
It's a
So
proxy
we
war.
went to war in Iraq in March of 2003 at the behest of Israel, flat out. Bibi said it, glad you're doing it. And I don't know, there's no debate about that. And then in the years since, we've gotten millions of Muslims in the United States, millions, since the Iraq War.
Yeah.
So how's that program worked out for us? We didn't have any Muslims in the United States when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And as our support for Israel has become more and more fanatical, which it is, it's fanatical, can't even discuss it, anti-Semite, we've gotten more Muslims. So I don't think this works the way that we think it does.
Right. I think that the whole system at the top is demented.
Yeah, you think?
But that doesn't change the facts on the ground. We've got the problem that we have in Dearborn is a problem that London has and a bunch of other UK cities have.
I would argue that because we are involved militarily and on many other levels in the Middle East, at the behest of Israel, we're there because of Israel. We have an air base in Qatar because of Israel.
I'm so tired of hearing that argument. Like, and the thing is like, yes, like we don't want to have these smart cities. We don't want to have these Islamic-owned central areas. We don't want to have, obviously, we don't want mosques being put up in the middle of Michigan. We don't want, Detroit to become a hub for, jihads, obviously. But to compare that, the ground level infiltration that they're doing, which, truth be told, they do have power in like those local communities. They do, together strong. But to compare that, and in any sense, shape, or form, to the Jewish diaspora that exists in America, the Christian Zionist faction that is, I think it's anywhere from like 20 or 23% of like all Christians in America, is insane. They are not even anything close to comparable, especially when you compare them to institutional power, to national power, to all of it. It just, and it misses the point completely, because think about this conversation taking place and it being irrespective of all of the Jewish supremacist elements that exist in the Epstein files, which we know to be true. Goyim in abundance. No, they're good wasps. It's just like, at a certain point, I mean, this is so discrediting to Doug Wilson, and I hate to be one to say it. I'm not the first to say it, but it's in reference to this interview maybe. But this is pathetic. This is someone who has either is actively being misled or manipulated, or has simply incapable of looking at information objectively. And, and I really hope that he's just being duped, because that's actually the better answer. I hope he's being duped. I hope it's because he's being misled and being pushed and prodded by different individuals, because the latter is nefarious. The latter is, you are actively and willfully being ignorant to protect and aid and abet those same individuals who have essentially been turning this nation into a crime syndicate for another foreign nation. It just, and that is truly nefarious. But let's continue.
Israel. We have all these troops there because of Israel. We have a lot of Muslims.
We might have an air base in Idaho, Qatari, if the deal goes through.
Why is that? Because Israel bombed Doha, because they were doing we were doing a peace negotiation with Hamas. Why is that our job? Why is any of this our job? We've invaded the world, and then we've imported the world. It happened to Britain. That's why they got immigration in the 60s, because their empire was coming down, and they're like, oh, you're from Barbados, you're from Nigeria, those were British colonies, you move here.
Right.
And we're doing the same thing. So how about we don't have actual interests in the Middle East other than oil. Let's just pull back, because this is destroying our country, what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza, which is totally indefensible as far as I'm concerned. Israel. How about let the kids leave? No.
Israel.
How about let food in? No. You have the most precise munitions in the world, but you're blowing up Christian churches and schools and hospitals? Tell me why you're doing that. What the Israeli government is doing in Gaza is terrorism and unconscionable. No one denies that tens of thousands of children have been killed in Gaza. It's just an absolute fact. I visited some of their surviving siblings last week, and all of a sudden people are like, it doesn't matter if the kids get killed, or they blow up 2 churches in Gaza.
Were there tunnels underneath
They
them?
never claimed there were tunnels underneath.
No, I'm just asking.
No, but it's like insane. And by the way, if there were tunnels underneath, sorry, you still can't blow up a Christian church when all your money's coming from a majority Christian country. Sorry, there are limits on what you can do.
Okay.
Tough luck. Anybody who's out there trying to squelch.
But this is not insane. You have Doug Wilson's like laughing at the fact. And how many kids and innocent individuals were in those churches, right? I know the one kind of just struck the tower. Like Doug Wilson is laughing at this. Is it not wild to see Tucker Carlson on the other side of this going like scoffing at it? Now, granted, he's coming at it from a bit more of this kind of like oppressor and oppressed, narrative, right? Like worrying about these people. We should be concerned about the people who are literally being actively genocided, on Israeli Channel 13. It's mind-blowing to be here today, because this is, again, Doug Wilson is somebody I followed like 3-4 years ago, and to see this is now the current frame. Tucker's over here. Crazy.
Criticism of Israel. Ask, is it like regrettable, sad, maybe even immoral to kill someone, a child who did nothing wrong? And if you can't say that, then we're just operating from different worlds. I'm sorry. Why can't you say that? Why is that so threatening to say, probably not a good idea to kill a child? They will not say that, and they much less apologize for it. Why bomb churches in Gaza? Tell me. You've got the capacity to put bombs in people's pagers, but you accidentally hit 2 churches? Not an accident. How about you ask for our forgiveness? Israel has not allowed food aid into 2 million people. There's no infrastructure whatsoever. There's no business. They flattened 70% of it. We know that from satellite photos.
And additionally, I found out this recently, but the United Nations has ceased its mainstay delivery of food because it has quite literally just become, it's just altogether too dangerous. Even the United Nations has abandoned it. Not all of their food deliveries, but the mainstay ones, the big ones. And again, we already know all these like these smaller facts, right? You look at just some of the just general cruelty of what's going on. You're looking at the cruelty of like the way they treat the prisoners. They're having active protests because they want to be able to grape the prisoners. But where's the media coverage for this? Non-existent. The churches, right? The church thing was barely covered here in America, and then when it was, you know what ends up happening? Joel Berry comes out and is arguing in defense of why people are overreacting to it. Oh wow! Imagine that a Seth Dillon acolyte, a Babylon Bee, connected individual. Where are we? Where am I right? Am I like, hello? Like what's happening? like what is going on right now? It's disheartening.
And so what is that? Their entire country is dependent on U.S. taxpayer dollars. There would be no wars fought by Israel alone because it's got 9 million people and no resources. They have a reserve military. They don't have enough people. A huge chunk of their country doesn't work, but no one can admit it. They all have to lie about everything. If Israel does stuff that I despise, my view is I don't want to pay for that. Okay?
Right.
Get out of my country. Stop trying to censor me. Go do your own thing in your own Eastern country, which is not Western, sorry.
The West Bank, the conflict there is not caused by Israel holding the West Bank. Israel holds the West Bank because of the conflict. So when Israel was formed...
Oh, dude, this is so bad. This is so bad. Bro, this is so bad. This is actually beyond discrediting, dude. This is like, you are a liar. You are a deceiver. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, here we go. Here, can you give me the Likud party platform, please? Lay it on me, Wilson. I've only heard it 4,000 times.
The next day or whatever it was, they were invaded. So a lot of what
yeah, when they were formed, like the next day or whatever, they were invaded. Like, that's wonderful. Thank you for that context. I don't know. How was Israel formed? Are we forgetting the Balfour Declaration? Are we forgetting that it was 3 terrorist organizations? In fact, only one, well, there was technically 2 because the one wasn't completely recognized as a terrorist organization. And then it turns out the one that wasn't recognized as a terrorist organization, because they maintained some level of ability to act as a group cohesively, they're the ones running guns into the country. And you know what that ends up occurring? Well, as guns are being ran and nuclear triggers and enriched uranium is being ran from America over to Israel, you know what's happening? Russia starts end up getting guns being ran into both Egypt and Jordan, and we know all this, but in Doug's world, these Jews just like they put a tent up, and then all of a sudden like a jihad flew out of the sky in his quadcopter, and they started blowing people up. If you believe this, I don't even know if it's worth talking to.
Israel has
the West Bank was taken by Israel in 1967 from Jordan.
Right.
So Israel proper, the West Bank is what we used to call an occupied territory. Now they have a new name for it. A lot of Israelis used to say, like, we've got Gaza, we used to have Golan Heights, and we've got what we call the West Bank. And those are what we call the occupied territories. They're majority Arab, majority Muslim Arab, though tons of Christians, fewer now. But yeah, what do you do with that? You can't call yourself a democracy if they don't have full citizenship, but you can't give them full citizenship because then they'll vote you out.
What a masterclass by Tucker. Well, I hate to say masterclass, but he was cooking there. He was cooking. And I have to look up like the West Bank specifically to have an idea. But if I'm remembering correctly, the West Bank came under Israel's control after they both pushed out both Syria and Egypt. But then I think the Yom Kippur War. I'm pretty sure that's when West Bank came into play for Israel. So it's like, it wasn't even when Israel was formed. And it's crazy to just say Israel being formed. Like, that is such a there's such a good way to omit like just so much. And it's so deceitful. And again, this is Doug Wilson. This is somebody who has looked heavily in the Christian nationalist community. And he's entirely been co-opted by Larry Loomer. I don't know if Larry Loomer, himself or herself, whatever you want to go with. It's so disappointing, man. And this is what I mean, man. We are living in the era of never meet your heroes. Never meet your heroes. That is, by definition, that's what we're going through right now. So many, categorically, all these different places, right? All these celebrities. Like, my one friend, and this is funny because it's like, I think his name is Alan Richson, the guy who plays like in Reacher and all these. Is like talking about all this, like, man, I really like this guy. And I'm like, he's a raging liberal, right? Like, this guy came from like Blue Mountain State. This guy, like, all these things. I'm like, he's not like this based Chad. Like, it's not Hollywood, dude. Like, people watch movies in Hollywood and they're like, dude, that guy must be so cool. It's like, bro, it's a movie. He's being paid to do that. My friend knows who he is. That's probably what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I will not be streaming tomorrow, and part of that's just because my wife has plans, so I gotta babysit the baby. No, I just have to watch my daughter. So change the schedule, so I won't be able to stream tomorrow. The Graper Report will be coming back on Saturday. That'll be coming at 8 p.m. at NAV. So you can find that on YouTube. You can find that in the description below as well. That should be there. If it's not, well, I'm just retarded, and that's my loss, I guess. I'm trying to think of what else is going to be happening. I believe I might also stream one more time over the weekend, potentially, but we will see. I'm going to try to get a video out tomorrow in place of a stream, since I won't be able to because the timing will be off. So we'll see how that works out, but stay updated. The Rumble channel is live now too. You can find Atlas Thugged on Rumble. I've basically been essentially just reposting all of the streams from YouTube to Rumble after the fact. The Telegram channel is live as well too. We put the Telegram channel up in advance in the case anything were to happen to the Discord community. So you can also find that there as well. Defensively Accurate's on Spotify, on Apple Podcast additionally. And if you don't want to support me on YouTube, you can support me at Buy Me a Coffee. That's always an option as well. Excited to do Grip Report with Josh tomorrow. But hopefully I'll be getting back into the swing of actually putting out videos, back to where I actually I enjoy doing it, because I prefer doing the videos a bit more than I do the streams. Not to say I don't like you guys at all, but I just I'm a creative like that. And hopefully we can figure out what I did that upset YouTube, because the numbers have been bad the last couple of days. But it is what it is, and this is why we built all these things in case anything were to happen. But yeah, just stay updated, and if anything changes, any plans, I'll be posting the Discord, I'll be posting on X, I'll be posting on, not Rumble, but I'll be posting on Telegram. So keep updated if you want to know what's going on with me. And again, special thank you to Zeb for coming on and doing the joint stream together. I appreciate him greatly for it, and probably more conversations like that to come. But as always, Christ is King, Christ is Lord. Say it. And deport Kash Patel, deport Pam Bondi, impeach the entire Trump administration at this point. Don't care. Put him in prison. I don't care. And man, let's be better than we were yesterday. Let's actually push for things. Whether you agree with looks maxing or not, just work on your charisma. We'll use those terms. Build charisma, build your finances, build your confidence, build your intellect, build your spirituality, strengthen your relationship with God. Be better. Just simply be better. Don't ask me how even. I'm just going to change it to that. Be better. Be stronger, be faster, be smarter, be better. All of it. And that's all I have for you guys today. Should see this tomorrow on the podcast platforms, and maybe I'll do some weird things in between there. Or maybe I'll experiment. Who knows? I am what's the word? Unpredictable wild card. Anyways, see you guys next time. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ